The Seneca are classified as Northeast Indians. At first, the homeland of the Seneca extended from Seneca Lake to the Allegheny River, which is present-day western New York, and some drifted into part of Pennsylvania. Their native name is Onondaga, the people of the Great Hill. To the non-Indians, they became the Seneca. To the other members of the Iroquois League, the Seneca were the keepers of the western door. The Iroquois thought of their combined territory as one large longhouse, with the Seneca guarding the western entrance and the Mohawk guarding the eastern entrance. Presently, about 7,800 people are citizens of the Seneca Nation of Indians. These enrolled members live or work on 5 reservations in New York: the Allegheny, the Buffalo Creek Territory, located in downtown Buffalo, the Niagara Falls Territory, and the Oil Springs Reservation near Cuba. Few Seneca reside at the Oil Springs, Buffalo Creek, or Niagara territories due to the small amount of land at each. The last two territories are used for casinos. The Seneca were part of the Iroquois League, in which they were the largest, most populated tribe of at least 4,000 by the 1600s. The villages were the homes and headquarters of the Seneca. The Seneca created permanent settlements and grew agricultural crops in their villages. They also hunted widely through extensive areas. They maintained far-reaching military campaigns. The Seneca Nation's economy was based on hunting and gathering activities, fishing, and the cultivation of corn, beans, and squash. These vegetables were the fundamental foods in their diets and were called the Three Sisters. Seneca women generally grew and harvested varieties of the Three Sisters, as well as gathered medicinal plants, roots, berries, nuts, and fruit. Seneca men were generally in charge of locating and developing the town sites, including clearing the forest for their production of fields. Seneca men also spent a large amount of time hunting and fishing. Seneca people lived in villages and towns. Archaeologists' excavations showed that some of these villages were surrounded by fences or barriers for warfare. These towns would change location every 20 to 30 years as soil, game, and other resources would diminish. During the 19th century, many Seneca natives adopted customs of the Americans by building log cabins, practicing Christianity, and participating in the local agriculture. The Seneca tribe was led by a chief council chosen by the clan mothers. They were female leaders, or patriarchs. During the Revolutionary War, some Seneca sided with the British and Loyalists. As a result of the massacres on American towns, in 1779 they were attacked by the United States forces as part of the Sullivan Expedition. Sullivan's expedition marched up the Susquehanna to Elmira, pushing the Seneca to Fort Niagara, despite a costly maneuver that led to the whole army straight into a swamp. From this point on, with the League undeniably dissolved, the nation settled in new villages along Buffalo Creek, Tonawanda Creek, and Cattaraugus Creek in western New York. These settlements eventually became the nation's reservations after the Revolutionary War as part of the Treaty of Fort Sandwich in 1784. On July 8, 1788, the Seneca and other Iroquois Nation tribes sold their rights to the land east of the Hennessy River in New York to Oliver Phelps and Nathan L. Gorham of Massachusetts. On November 11, 1794, the Seneca signed the Treaty of Canandaigua with the United States, agreeing to peaceful relations. On September 15, 1797, at the Treaty of Big Tree, the Seneca sold their lands west of the Hennessy River, retaining 10 reservations for themselves. The sale opened up the rest of western New York for settlement by European Americans. On January 15, 1838, the U.S. and some Seneca leaders signed the Treaty of Buffalo Creek, by which the Seneca were to relocate to a tract of land west of the state of Missouri, but most refused to go. The majority of the Seneca in New York formed a modern, elected government, the Seneca Nation of Indians, in 1848. The Tonawanda Band of Seneca Indians split off, choosing to keep a traditional form of tribal government. Both tribes are federally recognized in the United States. 1775 to 1783. The Seneca Indians fought with the British during the Revolutionary War. 1778. British Redcoats, Tory Rangers, and Seneca Indians in central New York State killed more than 40 people in the Cherry Valley Massacre A regiment of 800 Tory Rangers under Butler and 500 native forces under the Mohawk war chief Joseph Brant fell upon the settlement, killing 47, including 32 non-combatants, mostly by tomahawk. 1794. The Treaty of Canandaigua was signed at Canandaigua, New York, by 50 sachems and war chiefs representing the Grand Council of the Six Nations of Iroquois Confederacy and by Timothy Pickering, official agent of President George Washington. In Canandaigua Treaty, a treaty between the United States of America and the tribes of Indians called the Six Nations, 1824. The U.S. War Department created the Bureau of Indian Affairs. A lifelong friend and trusted aide of Ulysses S. Grant, Eli Parker rose to the top in two worlds, that of his native Seneca Indian tribe and the white man's world at large. He went on to become the first Indian to lead the Bureau. 1831. Ceded land removed to Indian Territory. 1838. Treaty of Buffalo Creek, the tribe lose their New York reservations. 1842. Regain the Cattaraugus and Allegheny reservations. 1848. Become Seneca Nation of Indians. 1857. Repurchase the Tonawanda and Buffalo Creek lands using money they had for relocation to Kansas. 1869. Quakers established the Seneca Indian School at Wyandotte, Oklahoma. The school was closed in 1980. 1892. In New York State, the Seneca Indians set up a treaty whereby non-Indian residents of Salamanca, a town built on the Seneca Nation of Indians Allegheny Reservation, paid rent to the Seneca Indians. 1965. In western New York, the Kinzua Dam of the Allegheny River opened. Construction of the dam forced the departure of Pennsylvania's last Native Americans, the Senecas, who now live near Salamanca, New York, on the northern shores of land flooded by the dam. Another 1,200 or more people are citizens of the Tonawanda Band of Seneca Indians and live on the Tonawanda Reservation near Akron, New York. Other Seneca are members of the Cayuga Seneca tribe of Oklahoma who live near Miami, Oklahoma. Around 10,000 to 25,000 Seneca are citizens of the Six Nations and live in the Grand River Territory near Brantford, Ontario, Canada. They are descendants of the Seneca who migrated to Canada after the American Revolution, where they were given land as allies of the British government. Other people enrolled in the Seneca Nation live scattered. Corn Planter was a Seneca war chief during the French and Indian War. In the post-war years, he worked to learn more about European American ways and invited Quakers to establish schools in the Seneca territory. The United States government granted him about 1,500 acres of former Seneca territory in Pennsylvania in 1796 for the Seneca, which became known as the Corn Planter Tract. It was flooded in 1965 by the Kinzua Dam, and most remaining Seneca moved to Allegheny Reservation. Red Jacket was a Native American Seneca orator and chief of the Wolf Clan. He negotiated for his nation with the United States after the Revolutionary War, when the Seneca, as British allies, were forced to cede much land and sign the Treaty of Canandaigua. He helped secure some Seneca territory in the New York State, although most of his people had migrated to Canada for resettlement after the defeat of the British.